Growing up as George Sinclair meant existing in the shadow of opulence. Our last name was synonymous with wealth, power, and privilege, a dynasty built on old money and even older secrets. From the outside, life in the Sinclair mansion was a parade of extravagance, grand galas, private chauffeurs, and vacations to places so exclusive they weren't even on the map. But beneath the shimmering veneer, my reality was different. My siblings, Nancy and Mia, were handed everything on silver platters: trust funds, luxury cars, designer wardrobes before they even knew how to spell Versace. Meanwhile, I was given a different inheritance, the mantra of self-sufficiency. Work harder, George, achieve on your own merit, my father would remind me, his voice like a gavel sealing my fate. My mother, always immaculate in couture, would nod approvingly, her diamond earrings flashing under the chandelier light. It builds character, dear. For years, I swallowed their words, convincing myself they were shaping me into something greater. But everything changed on one crisp autumn night when I stumbled upon a conversation that shattered the illusion I had spent my entire life believing in. The door to my father's study was slightly ajar, just enough for me to catch the tension in the air. Their voices, usually poised and controlled, trembled with uncertainty. "We can't keep this up," my mother's voice cracked, a rare slip in her usual composure. "The debt is drowning us. What are we going to do?" "We'll figure it out," my father responded, his tone clipped, measured, but unmistakably shaken. "The kids can't know, especially not George." The words cut deeper than I expected. Not Nancy, not Mia, me. They thought I was the one who needed shielding. No, they wanted to keep me in the dark. My sisters had their safety nets, but I had been left to fend for myself under the guise of building character. And now, when the empire was crumbling, I was still the last to know. The betrayal burned. I needed answers. The next day, I took matters into my own hands. A trip to the bank under the pretense of curiosity turned into something much more. Mr. Thompson, the family's trusted banker, was a man of tradition. He had known me since I was a child, always greeting me with a warm smile and firm handshake. Today, I needed more than pleasantries. "Hey, Mr. Thompson, how's the family? The kids must be in college by now, right? Growing up too fast," he chuckled, setting down his pen. "What can I do for you, George?" I kept my voice light, slipping my real question in like an afterthought. "Actually, I was wondering, has there been any unusual activity with the family accounts? You know, with the market being so unpredictable." The humor faded from his face. He hesitated, glancing around before leaning in slightly. "George, I shouldn't be telling you this, but there have been substantial withdrawals, loans taken against your parents' assets. It's not my place to speculate, but things aren't what they used to be." Bingo. That night, I caught another piece of the puzzle. My mother, usually the epitome of control, was on a heated phone call, her voice unsteady. "We need to consolidate everything. If this gets out before we're ready, it will ruin us." Ruin, that word clung to me like a ghost. At dinner, the Sinclair illusion was still in full force. Nancy bragged about some extravagant purchase. Mia gushed about her upcoming trip to Santorini. I could barely stomach it. "Must be nice," I muttered, not quite under my breath. Nancy shot me a look. "What was that, George?" "Oh, nothing," I replied, forcing a smile, just happy to see everyone so comfortable. My parents exchanged glances, quick, fleeting, but unmistakable. They knew I knew. But I wasn't done. The perfect stage for my revelation arrived in the form of a grand family reunion, the kind where guests clinked champagne glasses and exchanged hollow pleasantries. Amidst the glittering laughter and the hum of shallow conversation, I stood. "To family," I said, raising my glass, "to the ties that bind us and the truths that define us." A chorus of cheers erupted, but I wasn't finished. "And to the hard truths, like the fact that while some of us have been given every advantage, the rest of us are standing on a sinking ship." Silence fell like a guillotine. My mother's face paled. "George, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the debt, Mom, the debt you and Dad have been hiding, the one threatening everything while Nancy and Mia live in blissful ignorance." Gasps rippled through the room. My sisters exchanged panicked glances. My father's voice was sharp, commanding. "George, you're out of line." "Am I?" I countered, pulling documents from my jacket. "Bank statements, loans. You've been borrowing against our assets just to maintain the illusion." Nancy snatched the papers. her eyes darting over the numbers. This can't be right. Our trust funds, are they compromised? I finished for her. Yes, all of it. Mia stood, fury igniting in her usually carefree expression. You knew about this and just let us keep spending? What kind of brother does that make you? The kind who wanted to wake you up. I shot back. We're all in this mess together, but not because of me, because of them. I turned to my parents, the architects of our crumbling empire. Accusations flew. Voices rose. The carefully constructed Sinclair image collapsed under the weight of reality. My parents scrambled to regain control, insisting this was a family matter that required discretion. But the damage was done. The trust that once held us together was as empty as the accounts they drained. In the days that followed, the silence from my family was deafening. I had become the pariah, the traitor who dared to pull back the curtain. I packed my things and left, stepping into a world I had never truly known, one where I would have to build my own future from the ground up. Then, one day, a text from Nancy. You've destroyed this family. Don't expect any of us to forgive you. I stared at the screen, the weight of my choices settling over me. After a moment, I replied, knowing she might never understand. I didn't destroy us, Nancy, I just told the truth. Someday, I hope you'll see that. No response. With my family ties frayed beyond repair, I stepped into the unknown. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. I focused on the one thing still within my control, my own future. Everything else had spiraled beyond my reach. But this, at least, was mine to shape. I refused to let my past define me, nor would I let the mistakes of my family dictate the course of my life. So, I poured every ounce of my energy into creating something real, something built not on deception or empty prestige, but on genuine value. That was the moment I launched my financial advisory blog. For years, I had watched people around me misunderstand wealth, believing it was merely about having money rather than knowing how to manage it. I had seen firsthand the consequences of financial recklessness, of blind trust in fortunes that felt limitless but were anything but. I titled my first post, Vows. It was a promise, not just to my readers but to myself, to approach money with integrity, responsibility, and wisdom. I wrote about what I wished someone had told me when I was younger, what I wished my own family had understood. The response was overwhelming. I had expected a slow start, maybe a handful of curious readers, but people craved honesty. They weren't just seeking financial advice, they were searching for guidance, for clarity in a world that often shrouded money in secrecy and confusion. My words resonated with them because they came from experience, the hard, painful lessons life had taught me. As my blog gained traction, the messages started rolling in. Thanks, George, one reader wrote. Your advice on debt management helped me get back on my feet. How did you learn so much about this? I hesitated before replying. How much of my story was I willing to share? How much did they need to know? Life taught me the hard way. I finally responded. I'm just glad I can help. Then, another message caught my eye. This one was from a woman named Amanda Reed. Your posts about financial independence are inspiring. It's tough going alone, isn't it? I leaned back in my chair, considering her words. Yes, it was tough. Building something from the ground up, without the safety net of family wealth, was a daunting road to walk, but it was also liberating. It is, Amanda, I wrote back, but it's worth it. When you build something that's truly yours, no one can take it away. With every exchange, I felt a connection growing between myself and my readers. Strangers, people I had never met, felt closer to me than my own family. They weren't interested in illusions of success, they wanted the truth, and I was willing to give it to them. As the months passed, my blog became more than just a website. It evolved into a community. People from all walks of life shared their financial struggles and victories. The contrast between them and the hollow grandeur my family had always projected was stark. These people weren't chasing status, they were striving for stability, security, and self-reliance. One evening, I took a leap and hosted my first webinar, titled Truth and Finances. Hundreds logged in, their names flickering on the screen as I prepared to speak. You have to face the hard truths, I told them. Just like in life, you can't ignore the debt hiding under the rug. It's better to confront it head-on, restructure, and move forward. When I finished, the virtual applause felt real. This wasn't the empty validation of wealth and power, it was respect, earned through honesty and effort, the kind of recognition money could never buy. Despite the ongoing strain with my family, I had found success on my own terms, living apart from their wealth and influence. I hadn't just survived, I had thrived. Then, one morning, the headlines broke like a tidal wave across the financial world. Prominent business family faces bankruptcy, assets seized. I stared at the words, my coffee cooling in my hands. My parents, once revered figures in the business world, had become cautionary tales of mismanagement and hidden debts. The fallout wasn't just theirs to bear. My sisters, Nancy and Mia, had their trust funds wiped out overnight. The security they had relied on for years had vanished like smoke in the wind. As I read the articles, a strange mix of emotions churned within me. Vindication? Maybe. Sorrow? Definitely. No matter what had transpired between us, they were still my family, but their downfall only reinforced what I had always believed: wealth without wisdom is a dangerous illusion. My phone buzzed repeatedly with notifications, readers reaching out, messages of support, questions about how I was holding up. One comment from Jenna, a longtime follower, stood out. "George, saw the news about your family. How are you holding up?" I took a deep breath and typed my response. "Thanks for the concern, Jenna. It's tough, but it reinforces everything I stand for: transparency, responsibility, and financial stability." As my blog's reputation grew, so did my influence. Invitations to speak at conferences, guest spots on financial podcasts. Suddenly, my voice carried weight in an industry riddled with false promises. During a live interview, the host leaned forward, curiosity in his eyes. "George, how do you maintain trust with your audience in light of your family's issues?" I met his gaze, my voice steady. "By being upfront. My family's downfall, caused by hidden debts and poor decisions, only strengthens my resolve to promote financial honesty and resilience. People deserve the truth." The support was overwhelming. My blog, once just a personal project, had become a trusted resource for thousands in navigating their own financial struggles. Then, one evening, after wrapping up another successful webinar, an unexpected message appeared on my screen. "Mia. Hey, George, can we talk?" I hesitated before dialing her number. "Mia, what's up?" Silence, then, a heavy breath. "I owe you an apology, George. You were right about everything. I was too caught up in the benefits to see the costs. I'm sorry for how things went down at the reunion." Hearing her admit that sent a wave of emotions through me: closure, relief, something almost like hope. "Thanks, Mia, that means a lot. It's been tough for all of us." "Yeah, it has." A pause. "Maybe you can help me start fixing my finances. I've got a lot to learn, and you seem to have figured things out." I smiled, the weight of old resentments lifting just a little. "I'd be glad to help, Mia. Let's take it one step at a time." As we ended the call, a quiet sense of peace settled over me. My family ties would never be what they once were, but perhaps, in time, they could be rebuilt on something stronger than wealth, something real. Through all the trials, I had built something far more valuable than money. I had forged a legacy of resilience, honesty, and integrity, and as I sat down to write my next blog post, I realized something profound. Success isn't about what you accumulate, it's about what you stand for.